Hello, my name is Laurie Smith, and this is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, the continuation. And I'm glad to be here. Just waking up this morning, having coffee. And we're looking at the Survivor to Thriver workbook. It's a manual put by the ASCA, that's Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and War Center program. And you can get that from their website. It's free. It's free to use, free to download. You just read it right on their website if you want to. They charge for like a physical copy. If you want to get a copy of it, they charge a few dollars for that. And here's my cat. You can't see her; she's over here. But, they have to charge because of the printing and the collating costs for that manual. But otherwise, it's free to use. So you can go to www.ascasupport.org. I did pop that link in the chat there, and you can get your own copy if you're interested in taking a look at it. And adult survivors of child abuse, that's what I'm talking about here this morning. And you have to know it's good for you to listen to, if the topics of abuse or anything to do with adult survivor issues might bother you. You need to just change the channel. You won't be hurting my feelings. It's early in the morning to be looking at this kind of stuff. And if you're a survivor yourself of abuse, you need to make sure this stuff won't trigger you because, especially if you're just starting out on your healing journey, it's really important. You want to keep yourself safe and know how to do that. Just say to yourself, am I feeling strong enough today? Is this going to really bother me and cause me to have a horrible day and then go backward in my healing journey sort of thing? You don't want that. Nobody does. So make sure you're safe enough and feeling strong enough to listen to something like this morning. And otherwise, just turn the channel, and you can always read the manual another time when you're feeling stronger and better and more able to handle, emotions or feelings that might come up because of this stuff. This stuff can be very triggering for survivors of abuse. So you need to know where you're at in your healing journey and know whether or not you're going to, hurt yourself or hurt somebody else and have a miserable day, because you're triggered. And, that's just no good. So make sure you're safe, correct? And so we'll get right into this. We're almost at the end of this manual. It's 21 steps, and it's part of the actual ASCA group. They have where it's like open share meetings, and then they have this step meeting. So this is actually a step meeting manual. And we're on step 18. That's page 107 of this PDF. And step 18 is I have resolved the abuse with my offenders to the extent that it's acceptable to me. And we were talking about that the very last part of the last video that I did yesterday. And so we started it. So I don't want to repeat all that stuff at the beginning there, but we just started taking a look at it. And we'll pick up where we left off. They said, you must remember that because you're dealing with people who may never have faced or changed their own abusive behavior, the degree of resolution will depend on the extent to which they can acknowledge the abuse. For this reason, there is a wide range of possible resolutions, which ultimately will determine whether you can still have some kind of relationship with your parents or abusers, whoever they were. If you decide to confront them, it is critical that you go into it fully prepared for whatever responses or consequences follow. If they do not want to hear your experience or accept the person you're becoming, then you must face the question of whether ongoing contact will be healthy for you. And that's just it, because, many people, have confronted their abusers, and sometimes the outcome's not what they wanted. And then it's a real letdown because I know for myself, I'll just speak for myself. I wanted my parents, who were my abusers. My brother, who also was one of my abusers, committed suicide when I was 20. He was 33. So there was going to be no resolution or talking to him about this stuff. So would I have done that? Probably, because I did confront my parents, actually. But the thing is sometimes, we want them to apologize. We want them to at least acknowledge what they did. So many times survivors of abuse, the abusers don't want to acknowledge what they've done. Even if they admit what they've done, they don't feel bad about it. And that's the issue. They don't even care that they've hurt that person, whoever that person was, whether it's a family member, or a stranger situation. Many times people just don't care. That's why they are abusers, right? That's why they did what they did in the first place. I don't see how you could care about somebody and abuse them like that. So it's obvious there's an issue there with that person. Had nothing to do with us, as victims and survivors of abuse. It's never our fault. Abuse is always the abuser's choice. And so, will they ever change their mind? Will they ever care what they did? Will they ever try to make it right? Which there's no real way to ever make abuse right. You can't ever you can't ever go back and take it back, and that sort of thing. This step is really difficult, I think, for most survivors of abuse, trying to get their abusive situation, like people, whoever it was, family members, whoever it was, stranger, danger stuff, whoever the abuser was, really difficult. And to try to get some sort of resolution from it, very difficult and almost impossible, unless there's going to be, and even if if there is a court case and you take them to court, you know, and they actually do, they're found guilty of the abuse and guilty of the crime, because just so everybody knows, abuse is a crime, and they're found guilty and they do time, they still may not feel bad about it. And this is the issue. So many survivors are just left with a situation that, hey, yeah, no, there's going to be no resolution. So this is the issue for so many people. And for me, it was because my abusers did not care. My parents, anyway, did not care what they did to me and to any of their children. But I'll just speak for myself. They really didn't care, and they didn't feel bad about it at all. They didn't feel bad what they did to their children or to each other, as husband and wife. So, what are you going to do? I had to I got to say my piece, which was good. And like I said, I was talking yesterday on my show about, handing my dad a copy of the book, A Life of Death and Redemption. Just handing it to him, going, there it is. It's out in the public eye. That made me feel really good, because I'm like, yeah, you might have got away with it on the earth, but the world's going to know how you really were, and everybody's going to know what happened, and regardless of whether you're okay with it or not. And I'm glad I did that. That was very, very healing for me to do that. And but the issue is that I still would never get any real resolution, because my dad didn't care. He never did care. I mean, neither did my mom. So this is the issue. This is a big issue for survivors of abuse. You have to be really careful about this stuff and not set yourself up for a fall, because so many times the abusers don't change the way that they felt about the abuse, and they were, or try to apologize for it or make it right. So then the abuse survivor who's working on their healing journey, sitting there thinking, well, maybe we'll be able to resolve this and I'll get, the answer that I'm looking for, the apology that I'm looking for. Because, I can't ever take back abuse. It's just done. But sometimes people would like to hear an apology, or that the abuser actually was sorry, or that they didn't, that they didn't mean to hurt that person, or whatever the issue is. But so many times that's not the case. And so you have to be careful doing this step. I will check the rest of this article out. They said this step presents the big issue of whether to forgive your parents or abusers, whoever the abuser was, right? In a sense, resolving the abuse means coming to terms with what was done to you and accepting the feelings you have toward the people that did it. For some people, this means forgiveness, but not necessarily for you. Those who were very sadistically and severely abused may never be able to forgive their parents' abusers. Accepting that the abuse occurred and putting it all behind you once and for all may be the only resolution that makes sense and feels right. Deciding whether to forgive or accept is your choice and no one else's. That's right. Because sometimes people say, oh, you have to forgive, or you'll just never be able to heal, and all of this stuff. And it's like, no, that's a personal choice. I would never tell somebody that they have to forgive their abuser. It's kind of like, and I don't listen to anybody telling me that I should forgive my abusers, whether I did or didn't. It's your personal choice. You make the decision for yourself. You're the one that has to live with yourself for the rest of your life. And so you need to make that decision and do what feels right for you, not what other people say or what other people tell you to do, or what you see on a refrigerator magnet somewhere, that we must forgive everybody. It's like, seriously, that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. I kind of did do that, because I felt better being the better person. But I don't forgive what they did. So that's the issue. I can't let that stuff just be forgiven. Seriously, it was just, abuse is just so horrific, right? So I'm not going to get into any graphic details here today. But the issue is what they did to me was heinous. And even if I didn't even think about all the stuff that they did to my siblings, and I just thought about what they did to me, it was just heinous. It was wrong. And there's no way you should treat a child like that. And there's no reason and there's no excuse for that kind of treatment for a child. And so, for my inner wounded children, I'm not going to be all, oh, they just were so messed up. It's okay. It's like, no, 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 it wasn't okay. You know what I mean? It wasn't okay. They really were, they, they, they were responsible for the destruction of my spirit, my body, my soul, my entire life until I became an adult and then had to try to work to fix all this stuff that I've been put through and try to learn how to live. Um, so I really still hold them very responsible. Yeah. I kind of think forgiving is almost like a real forgiveness thing is taking the responsibility. It's like not holding them accountable or responsible anymore. It's kind of like, that to me is for me not going to work. This is not going to work. They were responsible and they should have taken accountability for what they did, but they never did. My abusers. It's clearly up to you what you need to do. For me, I honor my inner wounded children that I remember, being so horrifically abused by standing tall for me, you know, and holding my head up and saying, "Man, I did not deserve that." And my abusers were exactly that, abusers, regardless of who they were as people themselves. You know, where I mean, it's not okay what people do. So I can't sit like my some of my family members, would sit there and say, "Well, Mom, she just made these wonderful cookies and she was such a good baker." That's all, they sort of bring this stupid stuff up and I'm like, yeah, but look what she did. Unbelievable treatment, like terrible, terrible treatment. And just because she was abused as a child doesn't mean I'm going to excuse that stuff away. No. Nope, no, she chose to hurt me and she wanted to hurt me and she liked it. Like they're talking sadistic abuse here. My mother was sadistic to the core and she loved what she did. She was very happy about it. Made her happy to hurt me. And I don't have to forgive that. Not at all. No. And my brother, same thing. When he sexually abused me, called me on the phone, 12 years old, telling me that he loved what he did to me. And I'm like, I was like in shock. I'm like, I had put all that kind of in a drawer and shoved it away so I wouldn't have to think about it. And I'm like, oh my God, he's talking about the CSA. I didn't know what to call it, CSA child sexual abuse. I just was calling it rape, you know. He's talking about rape. And I'm like, oh my God, he is from here. My sadistic abusers do not deserve my forgiveness. They really don't. But like I said, I have done some work in that so that I can be the better person. And also I can feel good about myself. You know what I mean? So I don't want to have that hatred in my heart anymore because that's where I was before. And the hatred was killing me, really it was. I needed to try to make peace with myself. There's no way I could make peace without abuse. There's no way. I can't say the abuse was ever okay. So this is the issue. These things are really, really hard. And I wouldn't rush through this step and just think, oh, I'll get resolution and what a great idea. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this step could take years and years to get to where a person gets in touch with how they feel about this step in the first place. Whether you really do, you know, want to maintain a relationship with your abuser, whoever it was, big deal. It's a huge deal. So it's not something to rush through. It's not something to just think, oh, I may finally get resolution. It's like you may never get resolution, and you may be hurt all over again by the same abuser who hurt you before, you know. Hi, Tessa. How are you? Oh, well, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'm glad you're here. It's very nice of you to be here with me. I appreciate everybody who's tuning into these videos and spending time with me while I'm doing this. I hope you're getting something out of this. For me, it helps me to see where I'm at on my healing journey. Keeps me going on my stuff. And, so many people I know there's so much, this horrible stuff been done to people. It's unbelievable. And then, we have to try to figure it out. It's like, how are we going to do this? You know what I mean? It's really, really difficult. So that's why I like to do these videos, and it helps me out too. So this is the thing, deciding whether to forgive or accept is your choice and no one else's. So don't let anybody pressure you into, you know, you need to do this, you need to forgive, you need to forget, and all of this garbage. That's clearly up to you. You know what I mean? I can never forget the abuse. That's the issue. I'd have to have a mental mind wipe, to wipe all that stuff out because I remember it. So I'd have to like have a psychological mind wipe or something for me to be able to forget about it. And so, I'm not going to, I can't forget it. So this is the issue. And not only that, but I don't think it does the person that I was, that little girl being abused, I don't think that's fair for her. You know what I mean? To just forgive and forget. Oh, well, it's okay, because that little person that I was so wounded. I mean, so horrifically wounded. Spirit, soul, mind, body, the whole thing. And so I honor her by remembering what she went through. That's me. I honor myself by doing that. But in that, some people don't want to do that. They're like, no, I just want to forget it. I just want to forget it. I just want to move on. And that's totally cool. That's totally cool. You know, you have to you have to make those choices and that decision for yourself. You know what I mean? For me, I knew it was just going to come back around and haunt me again at some point anyway. That's why I don't really, I never really thought, okay, I'll just let it go. Because every time I try to let it go, it would come back around as a suicide attempt. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, I need to face this stuff and I need to really look at it and, get in touch with it because otherwise I'm not going to be able to live. For me, that's the way it went. But that's not the way it is for everybody. Some people may choose to just be able to walk away from this stuff and just move on. And that's totally cool. Like I said, it's up to you. And you have to do what's best for you, right? Absolutely. So self-help on this section, this is page 108 of this Survivor to Thriver workbook here. They say, number one, review the section in chapter 1, what about confronting my abusers? Although far from a complete discussion, it highlights some of the complicated issues involved in answering this question. So you can go back and look at that. We've already looked at that section, chapter 1, confronting my abusers. Number 2, write some letters to your parents' abusers in your journal and then reread them a few weeks later. They had already talked about this earlier in a previous step to do with, I think it was with anger, stuff like that. And this will help you to develop your sense of what you may someday want to say to them. These letters are a working statement of your message to your parents' abusers and may evolve over time until such time as you decide whether to confront them. That's if you just thinking, okay, I might want to confront my abuser, you can actually start writing down what you would say to them. And, in a journal or something, just keep it like they're saying, and then just add to it as you go along, sort of thing. And then you can, at some point, make a decision whether you really do want to confront them or not. Then you'll have all the stuff there that you want to tell them. I wrote letters to my abusers who were all passed away at the time when I did all this work. I wrote letters to my mom. I wrote a huge letter to my mom, to my dad, and to my brother all separately. And I did that thing where John Bradshaw suggested, you sit empty chair in front of you, and you get to tell your abuser everything that you want to tell them. And it was great. I did it, man. And I laid it on thick. I really did. I told them off in a big, bad way. And I was like, I felt so good once I did that. I was like, yeah, okay, they're not sitting there, they're dead. But I'm like, that made me feel really good to get out of me what I needed to say to them that I didn't get to say. Because like I said, I did confront my parents on some stuff, but I didn't get to tell them everything that I wanted to, which I would have loved to do. I would have just loved it if they would have been, forced to sit and listen, like maybe tied up on the chair themselves, and just made to sit there and listen. It would have been great to be able to get all that out right to their face. You know what I mean? But the thing is, unfortunately, that didn't happen. They're all dead. So I did this just in that situation where empty chair, and I told them off. Really, I mean, literally, I told them everything, how they made me feel, what they did to me, how bad it hurt me as a child, what they did to my adult life because of that. And I just laid it on thick. I'm telling you. These weren't little short little blurbs that I went into. These were actually huge, massive letters. I actually destroyed them. I tore them up in a really vicious way because I wanted to get that anger out. So I took a pin and I just ripped them to shreds, tore them up, threw them in trash, and I'm like, there, I got my say. And the thing is, it did help. I wish I could have told it to their face, actually. I didn't want to hurt my dad. My dad, like I was talking in the show here before, I cut my dad off in 2010. He passed away in 2016. He was an old man, mentally ill, psychologically unwell. He was never going to change. But the thing is I didn't want to hurt him because I didn't want to be an abuser. I didn't want to be him. I didn't want to be my mom. I didn't want to be my brother. I didn't want to hurt him like he hurt me. You know what I mean? So I was actually, me and my sister were really nice to him. Got him set up in a senior's place, like I was saying. But I after 2 weeks, after making sure he was okay, I walked out of his life and was gone. And I was like, I don't want contact from you, and you will never call me. You will never see me again, and I won't go to your funeral. This is it. This is goodbye. And I said, you hurt me. You hurt my brothers and sisters. You hurt my mom, and you didn't even care. So I did tell him that stuff, but I didn't yell and scream at him and try to hurt him. Like, I just wanted him to know why I was walking out of his life and why I never wanted to see him again. If he knew about the books, he knew about all that stuff. He didn't even care. He's just like, whatever, And I'm like, no, you're out of my life now completely. So I'm glad I did that. It made me really happy, and I got to feel that, hey, at least I was good to him. My sister was good to him. And we didn't do what he did to us. We were good to him. See? Who's the better person? Me. So there you go. I refuse to pick up my abuser parents, ways of treating people, not doing it. You know what I mean? And, just because my abuser parents were abusers doesn't mean I have to be. And so therefore I chose that route because I didn't want to hurt him. But the thing is like, he deserved a whole lot worse than that. He really deserved to hear it all. I'm telling you. But instead of that, I talked to a chair and told him off. And so the issue is, it did feel good for me to be able to do that, to say to my empty chair with my, pretend abuser sitting there, it was better that way for me, and, that's just the issue. If we become abusive, then we're no better than the abusers. Have to be very cautious about this kind of stuff. Think about what you're doing before you do this kind of stuff. But writing letters, I just think that was such a, journaling, writing letters, that was such a great thing. And I'm glad I did it. I said, number 3, if you're having difficulty deciding whether to confront, try to answer some of the following questions in your journal. What past attempts, if any, have you made to address the abuse, and how did it turn out? What are the reasons and motivations for confronting your parents or abusers? What do you hope to get out of it? And how do you want your parents' abusers to react to you? How do you imagine they will react to you? Is there a specific outcome that would make you regret your decision to confront your parents or abusers? Then that's just what we just finished talking about. I mean, it may not be a situation where we may want to get this, some sort of caring response from our abusers, whoever they are. And it's like, no, we may not ever get that, and so you have to be prepared for those consequences if you do decide to confront them. And that's a big deal, right? What that does, it actually solidifies the whole thing. Then it's kind of like, okay, they're never going to change. Then you have to decide if you want a relationship with them at that point. It's kind of like doing, and some people still do, because there's many reasons for it. There might be estates involved, large sums of money. They might be still in the will, and they don't want to lose out on that, right? And why should they? Right? For me, I mean, like I said, it was no big deal to cut ties with my family, because it's not like I was in somebody's will, you know what I mean? To keep them around was just causing me a lot of pain and, more trauma on top of more trauma, because they're all very rude, ignorant people. There you go. So it just, it was better for me to walk away from my family. But the thing is not everybody wants to do that. And so you have to, realize they may never see you differently. They may never feel differently about how they treated you, whoever the abuser is. And they may not ever see that that what they did was wrong. And so they might continue to still treat you sort of the same, even though, as an adult, they can't really, seriously, most people don't go around. Adults, those adult abusers who abuse children don't generally beat up on adults. They love abusing children, right? Pretty sick and twisted. But, if you're an adult, you have the right to protect yourself. As children, we didn't have that right because it was taken away from us, right? So as an adult, you have your chances are a bit better that somebody's not going to attack you and abuse you and so on. Like, but they can still be very hurtful and very rude. And that's the thing. Like my mom stopped beating me at 17 years old, but that didn't mean she didn't stop abusing me. You know what I'm saying? Emotional, psychological, verbal stuff was still just as damaging as the physical abuse was. You know, so this is where people, they still can be very, very hurtful, even if they're not physically abusing you. They can cause you a lot of trauma, you know what I'm saying, with other types of abuse. So you have to think about this stuff very carefully, right? Professional help. Number one, this is if you're seeing a counselor or therapist, you could talk to them about this particular step, right? Number one, confronting your parents' abusers is an issue that will require the committed involvement of your therapist in helping you sort out what you want to do and how you want to do it. Planning any kind of confrontation about the abuse, be it a meeting or simple discussion with your parents' abusers, will benefit from a full and complete airing of feelings, doubts, expectations, and hopes. You will need the outside perspective of your therapist to make the best decision. And number two, if you wrote answers to the question posted in self-help item 3 above in your journal, discuss them with your therapist. So if you did write letters to your abusers and stuff, or you started to write this stuff out, what you would say to your abusers if you did confront them, you could actually show this to your therapist and or counselor and let them take a look at it. Together, you may be able to reach a conclusion based on your writings, doubts, feelings, hopes, and expectations. And two, actually, they've got two there twice. It's 3. Sometimes it is helpful to invite your parents, family, or abusers into your individual therapy for a session or more to discuss and work out selected conflicts with the help of your therapist. This would temporarily change the format and focus of your individual therapy, although you and your therapist would already have an established alliance. You should be aware, though, that the family therapy is not necessarily advisable or possible given varying circumstances and attitudes of the persons involved. Adding your parents, family, or abusers to your therapy sessions would pose an ethical conflict for your therapist, at least initially. Obviously, any consideration of such a plan must stem from your desire for it and your belief that it would be productive. Your therapist would also have to agree that the benefits of such an arrangement would outweigh the possible detriment. Yeah, that's the thing. That's a big issue, right? Bringing family members in, abusive, family members or abusers into your therapy session. Is that really a good idea? You have to seriously think about that stuff if you're going to do something like that. Because it's just kind of a common known fact that abusive type people, unless they really worked on themselves, are still abusive type people. They would have had to done a lot of work on themselves, in order to lose that abusive way of behaving and treating you, whoever the abuser was, right? So this is the issue that not everybody wants change, and sometimes people will act like they've changed, but they haven't. And that's my dad did that. My mom passed away when I was 30, and then my dad, he was on his own for quite a few years, living down in Arizona there. And he lived for 5 years with my sister. And my sister, he drove her absolutely crazy for 5 years. She actually took him in because she was trying to be good. See, she's trying to be nice. And so she let him stay with her. And he drove her absolutely nuts. I said, after about 2 years, she was driven insane. I said, you just got to tell him to go. You know what I mean? He needs to get his own place. He's abusive. He's psychologically unwell. He was, he would run around the house naked and stuff in front of my niece, who was only about 7 years old at the time. And he thought she was the devil. So he would scream at her and he was just scaring her all the time because he kept thinking she was the devil. My dad was very unwell, you know what I'm saying? So I told her, I said, you need to tell him to get his own place. You know what I mean? He needs to, you shouldn't even have him around your daughter like that. You know how he is. I mean, he's our abuser. And it's she just didn't want to be the one to put her foot down. I told her, I said, you need to just put his stuff out on the porch, literally. take his stuff, put it on the porch, and tell him he's got to go. This was back when he was in his, like 80s, or actually I would say late 70s. So he could have got a senior's apartment, but anything like that. So eventually he did. He ended up in Arizona with my older sister, who was still alive at the time. She was not happy. My 18-year older sister. She was not happy that he was in the same town as her. She was just like, oh my God, now I got to deal with him. You know what I mean? She's like, well, he's not coming over and hanging around us. I'll be nice to him, but I'm not taking him in under my wing. He's our abuser, right? So my oldest sister was just not impressed by this, that he moved over there where she was. And so he was never going to change. He would never get help for his issues. He was never going to be any different than he had ever been. Um, so she passed away at the age of 60, and he was down there by himself. She had cancer. She died at 60, so that left my dad still down there, in his 80s, by himself now, with nobody there that he knew really, except for some friends he had made. So he talked me into coming up here, and he's like, well, I want to go to Canada to be with you and Kathy and Kevin, my siblings that were still alive up here, and we were like, oh man. And my brother was like, no way. I talked about this on my show the other day. My brother was like, I'll kill him. He's not coming to stay with me. I'll kill him for sure. My brother, because he abused all of us. He beat my brother's head with an encyclopedia, causing him eye damage at the age of 5 years old. And I mean, he beat us all. You know what I'm saying? So the issue is like, my brother was like, I'll kill him. No way, he's not coming to stay with us. So, and he was like, don't you let him come stay with you. You guys know how you don't get along with him at all. You and him have like a bad relationship shit going on. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm older now and I think I can handle this, and you know, I want to try to maybe develop a relationship with him or something. My dad was like, oh, we could read the Bible together, because my dad was a Christian. See what I'm saying? My dad was a Christian. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe, we can develop a relationship, right? That's what I was hoping for. That's what I wanted. I was thinking, wouldn't this be great? Finally develop a relationship with my dad, that I never had. What a great opportunity. I was thinking. 2 months later, he drove me absolutely up the freaking wall. And I was like, you've got to go. And I was like, we are going to find you someplace. You've got to go. And, this is the sad thing. Sometimes these abusers, they will act like they've changed. They'll make it look good, but they haven't changed. Not one bit. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be really careful about this stuff. And you have to think about it very carefully before you start doing what they're suggesting here. These are just suggestions they're putting out here. But just because they're suggesting it doesn't, you have to think about this before you go and do something like this. Think about all this stuff very carefully before you just think, oh, what a great idea. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's not a great idea. It doesn't work the way you want it to. Just makes things worse, right? So you have to be very careful about all this stuff. When you're dealing with your abusers, absolutely. Whoever they are, whoever they were. So they said, number 4, discuss with your therapist what you think and feel about the issue of forgiveness. Explore what feels right to you and your reasons for feeling that way. Be aware that feelings about forgiveness, like any other symbol of resolution, may shift over time. And that's true. I mean, over time, people do change, and people's, ideas of what would be best for them change. And that's perfectly okay. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been on my healing journey for a long time now, like 10 years, pretty much, a little bit longer than that, actually. And, have my feelings changed? Not really. You know what I mean? I just work towards I work towards, healing more than anything. And so I'm always kind of interested in, because I can't resolve anything with my abusers. They're all dead. And there wouldn't have been any resolution anyway. But the issue is mostly what I do is just a lot of self-care. I'm learning how to take care of myself as an adult. I'm reparenting myself. I'm learning to love myself and to enjoy life and this kind of stuff. And so what I did was, in order for me to actually do this stuff, I had to allow that hatred to come out and love come in. because I had no room for love in my life because I had so much hatred and pain going on in there. And also to get to the point where I wasn't spiraling down into these pits of depression, which would then cause me to become suicidal and suicidal ideation. That's mainly the bulk of the work that I've done, just so I can have a decent, somewhat decent life. And so there hasn't really been about forgiveness or, this kind of stuff. Whether you ever do or not, that's your choice. And so, like they said, it can change over time, because there was a period of time where I kind of thought, no, I want to be the better person. So, they would never know I've forgiven them, but okay, I forgive them because I know that they were really messed up people. You know what I mean? And I don't want to hold hatred in my heart, because that's the issue. I'm trying to lose the hatred. But that doesn't mean that the truth isn't the truth. You know what I'm saying? And this is where I have to draw the line. Just because I don't want to have hatred in my heart doesn't mean that I don't think what they did was completely wrong and completely twisted. So, but for me to allow that hatred to come out, even the self-hatred, self-loathing stuff, allow love to come in, love for life, love for myself, love for other people, to where I'm actually enjoying life. That was a big step for me, and I'm glad that I did it. But sometimes, like I said, sometimes I feel like maybe I've forgiven a little bit, and then other times I'm like, no, there's no forgiveness for this stuff. And I think it does work like that. It's not a solidified thing. It depends on what's going on in your life, how you're feeling about things, how the abuse affected you. Sometimes we're doing good and things are going well, so we feel good and we're like, well, feeling a little differently about things. Okay, maybe I do. And then other times it's like, oh, no way do I forgive them. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? So I think it can go back and forth. I've seen it with other people too, but it does with me. So it's kind of depends on how I'm feeling. And but I also want to honor that little wounded person that I was, and that's the issue. You know, this little wounded child that I was. I want to honor that part of me that really never should have had to go through that stuff. You know, and so therefore, I basically, you know, for me just to forgive and forget just blows that little person that I was off. It's kind of like, forgive and forget. You know what I mean? It's all good. It's fine what they did. And that leaves my little 10-year-old who's got a bloody nose and, practically half dead there, sitting there going, what the hell about me? You know what I'm saying? What about me? That's what she was screaming the whole time anyway. What about me? Like, what? I don't count. I don't matter. I'm just a punching bag. So that's where I'm like, oh, that stuff is so deep and so horrific. What people put children through. For some people, like I said, they're glad to be able to just walk away from it. I know people who have survived horrific abuse, really horrific stuff, and they've been able to put it past them and walk on by. And I'm happy for them. I really am. Because I'm thinking, well, good for you. You know what I mean? For me, I don't know if I'll ever get to that place. I don't know. I think, like I said, it's possible. I believe that sort of thing can happen. It hasn't happened for me yet. Let's just put it that way. It's like, I'm not there yet. But the thing is that could it be possible? I believe it can be. If you want it to be, I believe it can be. Because the mind is an amazing tool. You can use it. And you can do all sorts of things with your mind. Like that Envision Mind program is amazing. That's what's helped me get through a lot of my stuff. And I still, like I said, I still have work to do. I do go in and do these meditation things with these inner children who I was at these points of wounding. And I still work with myself on all this stuff, but it's getting better, much better than it used to be, for sure. So that's the end of that number, step 18. And that's a big one, like I said, man. Oh, that's rough. Confronting your abusers, like awful, right? I know so many people have been through such horrible stuff, and then trying to confront their abusers and never getting the answers that they need or want. It's just so terrible. Step 19, this is page 110. I hold my own meaning about the abuse that releases me from the legacy of the past. This is the last step that focuses directly on your abuse, but it is nevertheless critical in this long process of putting the abuse behind you once and for all. After all your hard work on the previous 18 steps, your last task is to arrive at your own philosophical understanding of why the abuse happened to you and what it means for you today. After growing up thinking about that the abuse occurred because of who you were as a person, you must now replace this with an explanation that accords with what you now know, and who you are, and who you now are. So that's just making sense of the abuse. Um, and for some people, they can do that all, early on in their healing journey. And other people, it takes longer to actually kind of get to that stage. I think where it sort of makes sense what happened. It definitely wasn't our fault. That I do know, because I love to say that. I love to throw that out because there's a lot of abusers still out there abusing children, and they think it's perfectly okay. And I'm like, it's not okay. It never was okay, and it never will be okay. The abuse is not the child's fault. Let's just put it that way. It doesn't matter what kind of abuse it is. I don't care what it is. It's not the child's fault. So therefore, it wasn't my fault, right? That my abusers chose to do what they did to me. So I don't have to take the blame on. It's not my fault. Um, and how to make sense of abuse, like really, people, and this is the issue. This is where I'm not going to sit back and say, well, it's just that my mom was abused as a child and my dad, and they had mental issues, and they had their own marital issues, and they were so stressed out, they had so many problems. So that's why my mom cracked my head open with a rolling pin and almost killed me a few times. And that's why my brother raped me. I mean, to make sense of it, I can see what happened because I did the big picture, looking at what happened. But the issue is there's no excuse for that. There's just not. You can't. That abuse is a systematic way of treating a child. So abuse is not like a one-time. Okay, it can be a one-time offense. People kill children in a one-time abusive event, right? This is the issue. What it is it's not discipline, and discipline is not abuse. Abuse is they're two different things. And abuse is whatever hurts and harms a child. That's abuse. So if it hurts and harms a child, it's abuse. And if it's meant to. So people have the wrong idea about what abuse is. They think, oh, it's perfectly fine to just beat on a child. No, it's not. Not if you're hurting that child, and not if you have the intent and you mean to hurt that child and you want to hurt them. That's abuse. That's not discipline. And whatever you're doing to, like these abusers would do to a child, right? There's no excuse for it. So, sometimes people will, in order to make sense in their minds, survivors of abuse will, like, for instance, my sister, who will sit there and she can't have this negative feeling about our mom, especially. I don't think she really cares about our dad either. None of us did. We were just like, whatever, because he was always beating on our mom as well as us, and we were like, well, he's most of the problem here. But the thing is it's kind of sad but true. We really had no respect, and you know what? Too bad. He didn't deserve respect, and he didn't deserve our love. That's for sure. So there you go. But anyway, my sister can't separate the fact that my mother was abusive because she loved her. See, so she has to keep her. It's almost like looking at her as if she's up on a pedestal. Whoever these abusers are, especially if it's somebody in a family situation that you love or you look up to, really hard to separate that out. And I think that that's the only way she can deal with this is to say, mm, you know, but I loved mom, and she made wonderful cookies. In that way, she doesn't have to see any of that ugly stuff that our mother did to us because she was abused too, not just me. She doesn't have to think about that stuff because this way she can think about how good our mother was and, oh, our mother made cookies. That's the only thing she can think of because that's the only thing my mom did that was, she used to make us cookies and stuff, but she was a horrible woman. Let me tell you. Oh my God. You can have a cookie, but you also get your ass beat, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, who gives a shit about the cookie, right? This is where people have a hard time, I think, with understanding the abuse. And it's because so many people can't separate the abuser out and they love that person. So it's kind of like, oh, I guess, they did what they did and make excuses for them, see? And what that to me, that's just hey, whatever makes your day go. Because so like I'm saying, we're all we're all different, and we all feel differently about things, right? So my sister, I can't really, know, who am I to say that what she's doing is wrong? It's not. It's just that's the way she deals. That's the only way that she can deal with it, right? And for me, the only way I can deal with it is to be realistic. It's like, hey, hello, okay, mom made great cookies, but look what else she did. You know what I'm saying? That was really horrible. Can I just let all that stuff go and be happy that my mom made us chocolate chip cookies? Not really. You know what I mean? And the issue is because it wounded me, and I'm willing to take a look at it and say and be honest and say, okay, it wounded me. It seriously wounded me. My sisters can't do that, so she sits on the floor at night, rocking back and forth, drinking her face off, crying the blues because she has no clue who she is, what she's doing, where she's been. She's lost, man. You know what I mean? She's just as lost as I was before I started my healing journey. And but if that's the only way she can deal with it, I guess then that's just, that's what I'm saying. We're all in different places. So how we see things, it's truly up to you. You know what I'm saying? For me, the only way I could really make any headway in this was just to be real and honest about it and be like, wow, that was a flipping nightmare what we just came out of. And those people, shame on them. You know what I mean? I was talking about my abusers here. Shame on them for putting their children through that and each other. How terrible, and that they got away with it. CPS signed off the case, and they were just like, nothing changing here, man. You know what I'm saying? Do I blame CPS? No, I blame my parents. My parents were my abusers, and I blame my brother. That's who I blame. I blame the abusers, not society, not other people. I blame the people who were responsible for the abuse. That's my abusers. Right? So this stuff is, we all going to see things differently, right? And it's to make sense of it. It has to make sense for you in your mind. You know what I mean? So you have to get your own sense of what happened, right? And then you have to be okay with that because at the end of the day, that's the only way it works. For me, I had to be totally realistic about it, and just be like, this is what happened. This is why, because obviously the issues were that my parents were mentally ill and they were both abused as children and they had no clue how to do life whatsoever. But the thing is what they did was incredibly wrong. So for me, I had to actually be honest and real about it and not smooth it over and make it like, oh, that's okay. Mom was just messed up and oh, it's all right what she did to me because if I do that, then that little wounded person that I was, and I always go back to the 10-year-old because that's where that's where I believe that's where my soul was murdered. And maybe more before that, but I know I realized it at 10 years old that my mother was truly trying to kill me. I was like, oh, this sucks. What am I going to do? I'm stuck in this. And my family was just like, whatever, beat on her. Who cares? And I'm like, okay, did I deserve that? Mm-mm. I just wanted love. That's all. I just wanted love and somebody to care and, my family to care and my mom to stop hurting me. Right. And this is the sad thing. I just decided to be honest about it so that I could get in touch with that really those wounded children that I was and actually seriously get some help. You know what I mean? Whereas to just push it off and be in denial didn't seem like a good idea to me. You know what I mean? Just kind of like, oh, well, I love my mom. Because that's the issue. I did love my mom. People could say, how could you love your mother after what she did to you? I've actually had many people ask me that. And it's like, how could you love somebody who would do that to you? Because she was my mother, right? I think most children want to love their mothers who brought them into the world, And I think it's that mother-daughter relationship that, especially between daughters and mothers, the daughter wants to be accepted by the mother, not rejected. And the little girl wants that nurturing and that love that should come from the mother, because mothers should sit there with their children, and they should they should care about them, and they should like want to let them know how much that they love them. You know what I mean? Because that makes that kid feel good. You know what I mean? I can't imagine what that's like. I do in my mind. I sit there and I'm like, oh, that'd just be so nice, to have your mother be good to you and just say nice things to you and be gentle with you and hold you and hug you. I have no clue what that's like. No clue. My mom never held me. She never said a nice thing to me. She was mean and hurtful, really, most of the time. Um, and just yelling at me all the time. I was just this little thing that was in the way all the time. And it's like, I just wanted her to love me. That's all. And that's why she, I think, did what she did to me, because I needed her. And she didn't have anything to give to me. So it was kind of like, get away from me. So that's pretty sad, but that's true. She should have let me go. Right? The courts were involved. She could have easily put me up into foster care or whatever. I could have got a good home, with people. You never know, because foster children are abused too, and this is a real problem. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I speak out against abuse, because I'm like, hey, I know this stuff's going on, and this is not okay. And I love to use my voice against this stuff because it makes me feel better. But the issue is that no guarantee that I would have got a better home. But the issue is that's what my little wounded self always likes to think about. It's kind of that little wounded child that I used to be. Kind of sits there and thinks, oh man, must have been nice. Would have been so nice to just be held and loved and wanted. You know, so I can't be in denial. It does me a disservice to be in denial. And that's what I'm saying. These things are so hard, right? They really are. You have to do what's best for you, and that's why when you're reading these type of manuals and stuff, you'll get an idea of what this means to you, what the abuse did to you, how you're going to make sense of it, right? They give some suggestions and stuff like that, but truly it is up to us, because it's our life, right? And we went through it. We're the survivor, right? So, we survived it. This is the issue. So each one of us is going to think differently about this stuff. It says, in a sense, this step asks you to reflect on how and why things happen the way they do, and what this means for the person who is caught up in events beyond his or her control. You may ask yourself about the nature of good and evil. Why do bad things happen to good people? In this case, innocent children. You may call into question your notions about God or reaffirm your faith in a higher power. Your answers to these questions will be highly individual, as has been the development of your new self. Said you need to organize the thoughts, feelings, and information you have gathered during your recovery into a consistent, unified concept that will stay with you for the rest of your life, so that when old doubts arise, you can return to it to explain to yourself what the abuse really meant. As such, your explanation will serve to anchor you when you are buffeted by the challenges and opinions that will inevitably be voiced by some around you. And that's just it. I've looked at this stuff long enough now, like over 10 years, and writing those books, that was a big help, because I did do the big picture look at what was going on. And, it wasn't just me. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to do the whole family thing and not just talk about my abuse, because it was just a very dysfunctional situation, that we were all in. But, so I made some sense of the abuse, but it didn't help with sorting out my feelings. My feelings and making sense of the abuse had nothing to do with each other. Of course I can make sense of the abuse. I know why it happened. But the issue is that doesn't really help me to get in touch with my real feelings about the abuse. That's why I had to go and do a whole lot of work on getting in touch with my inner wounded self from so long ago, and allow these feelings to be looked at and re-experienced, which really is horrible. It really sucks. No kidding. Nobody wants to revisit abuse. Nobody wants to look back at this stuff. And you have to be careful doing it. Like I said, you don't want to start doing something like that and then find out that that's, put you into a crisis mode situation. You need to be very careful doing that kind of stuff. But for me, it really helped me out, because I needed to get a hold of this stuff, because it was also incredibly damaging and psychologically damaging as well. So I had to go back in and look at the dynamics of what was going on and how I was feeling through the different ages that I was, what was happening. Um, and the memories and stuff were all there. Like I said, my memories are intact, but some of the feelings and stuff I had pushed down. So I didn't want to think about that. I didn't want to remember it. So I pushed the stuff down. And I had to get back in touch with that and what it actually meant to me, how it made me feel, you know. Self-help, they said, number one, your understanding of the abuse and its meaning has probably evolved over the course of your recovery. Still, it is important to crystallize this understanding and to acknowledge to yourself that you have resolved this difficult issue. Write about it in your journal to develop your ideas further. Number two, share your understanding and meaning about your abuse at ASCA meetings and listen to others' explanations and thoughts. You may hear conceptualizations that capture a feeling you had but were unable to put into words. Continue to refine your thinking on this topic. It's interesting. Yeah, it's true. Listening to other people talk about their stuff can be helpful. That's why I like these ASA meetings because sometimes somebody will be talking about something and I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's interesting, because it gives me a little bit of a different thought process, a pattern sort of thinking. It's interesting how it works. So they said, number three, have you had any dreams that might reflect this new level of resolution regarding the abuse? Frequently, at major milestones of recovery, survivors have dreams that capture the essence of their understanding in a way that words cannot. It's interesting. I do dream all sorts of very strange stuff, and none of it's about the abuse. Actually, sometimes it is. Sometimes it used to be about the actual abuse, but now it's not really about that. Now my dreams are more just frustrating. I'm going somewhere and I'm always lost, and I can't find anything. And it's my car. I never can find my car. Never can find where I live, my apartment. And I'm always in some big city somewhere. I have no idea where I'm at or who the people are. So it's kind of like I'm lost, always in my dreams. But that's okay. It doesn't bother me really that much. I don't dream too much about the abuse anymore, like the actual abuse, which I used to. They're more like a flashback type dream, dreaming in the middle of the night, waking up, crying or screaming, because of the abuse. Professional help. This is a very short little section here. Number one, your therapist can be an important sounding board on this complicated philosophical issue. Remember, though, that this step is about what you think about the meaning of the abuse, not what your therapist thinks. And this can be one of the most poignant moments in your therapy, as you finally settle on an acceptance of your past, share your feelings about it with someone else, free of feelings of shame or defensiveness. That's kind of interesting. And I haven't got quite there yet, I guess. The issue is it takes time to go through this stuff and do this work. Like they said, we're almost to the end of this manual. And when it first starts out, you're looking at the abuse, what happened to you. 21 steps later, throughout your healing journey, if you do this journal or if you do this workbook around and around and around, the 21 steps, eventually, so many years later, hopefully we get to a place where we're feeling better. So things are better in our life, we're feeling better, getting help, right? This kind of stuff. So we may have our feelings and stuff may have changed. And that's why it's really important, I think, to journal. I used to journal more than I do now. Lately I haven't been journaling. I should be journaling. Journaling is really important because you go back and look at it and revisit it and be like, I've made huge progress in that, or kind of regressed in that, sort of thing. Sort of see where you're at, and sort of helps you solidify things. You can say, oh, I'm sort of still the same here, looking at this stuff, right? So this workbook's actually really helpful. I used it apart from the meetings. I didn't join the meetings. I just used this Survivor to Thriver workbook on my own healing journey at first. And then I eventually later did join the ASA meeting groups and went to meetings and stuff like that. So it's been very helpful for me. Like I said, hopefully it would be helpful for you. But this whole thing of making sense of the abuse, really, truly, nobody else really can do that but you. That's why I almost didn't trust a therapist or a counselor. I didn't want them telling me or trying to impose on me how I should feel about the abuse. I'm like, I'll tell you how I feel about the abuse because I have my own feelings on it. It's horrible. You know what I mean? And so, these things are hard. They really are. And you have to protect yourself. as a survivor of abuse, if you have a therapist or a counselor and it's not working for you, find one who does, and who will, who understands abuse. First of all, if you're going to do the counselor therapist route, make sure that that therapist actually is qualified and has actually, helped and treated survivors of abuse, right, child abuse and stuff, before you actually spend too much time with them. Some therapists and counselors have no training in that, and so they wouldn't really be able to help you that much, in that area. You need to find somebody who understands abuse and abuse-related issues, especially dealing with child abuse, right? Very important. I didn't trust a therapist and counselor. I just didn't. I was like, no, it's this trust issues, I guess. So I went with group support, online group support, and it really helped me out to do that, like I said. But whatever works for you, that's what you do, right? You have to do what's best for you. And thank you, Tessa. I appreciate it. Actually, I have put a lot of hard work into this, you know, year after year, and just talking about it, writing about it. And also, I do work on my own. Like I do that meditation. Been doing that for quite a few years now, and it's like that inner child work. That thing is very helpful. That program, your envision, well, my envision mind. It used to be called your envision mind. Now it's my envision mind. It's a great program, and it's a really awesome tool to be able to use. But I still have work to do, and like I said, will I ever get to will I ever get done? I don't know. But like I said, I do know survivors of abuse who have said they're done. They finished. They're done with their healing journey. They're doing great, and that's gives me hope that it is possible, and that they're not. It's not like they're in denial or anything. They speak out about their child abuse prevention public speakers like myself, and but they've finished their healing journey. They feel good. They don't feel like they need to revisit. They don't feel like they've got any anger issues towards it, but they still fight against child abuse. So that's what they do. But I think that's awesome, right? There's we have to work towards that, you know. And I mean, I'm like I said, so much further along than I used to be. Even though I have hard days, and we all struggle. Everybody struggles. Even the people that you think would never struggle because you think they've got it all together struggle. That's just the human dilemma. That's just it, you know. We all struggle at times, and some have harder times than others, and sometimes it's just I think we all get our turn. I really do, and I think that's sad to say. Sometimes in life we can coast for a while, things are going good, and then all of a sudden it's our turn, and it's like, oh, slam, up against whatever, and now we're in the thick of it. How are we going to deal? How are we going to cope? And people surviving abuse many times don't have the coping skills necessary to get through this stuff. So that's why I'm saying I'm always working on coping skills, probably always will be for the rest of my life, I can imagine. I've got a long way to go. I am doing a lot better than I used to, that's for sure. But I mean, I've only got so many years left, right? So I can imagine I probably still will always be working on some of this stuff. But whatever you do, you stick it out. Don't let the abuse destroy you. I always tell people that because it's very important for people to know you did not deserve that. If no child deserves that. Any type of abuse. I don't care what it is. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, as adults, we have to make the best decisions for ourselves. This is where I'm at. I'm like, okay, like I'm the adult here. I need to be making good decisions for myself. I really do. Nobody else can do it for me. So this is where I decided, okay, years ago, I'm like, I have to do this. I was going to let myself be destroyed by the abuse, by destroying myself, at the age of 41 and a half. I mean, my God, don't do that. I'm so glad because every day, like I said, every day I wake up and I'm like, it's such a slap in my abuser's face. It really is, all of them. And I'm like, this is so great. To be on this side of it and to be able to sit there and say, you know what? I love myself. I love my inner wounded self. I love all my imperfections. I'm totally not perfect. And I'm totally going to mess up in the future too. But I love myself and I love life. I'm learning to love life. And, every day I wake up, it's my victory. Because my parents couldn't kill me. No, my abusers couldn't kill me and they couldn't get me to kill myself. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying Don't be destroyed by your past. Don't let those abusers win. My two brothers gave up. They killed themselves. My abusers won in their case. They destroyed them. Don't do that. So, like I always say at the end of my shows, if you're struggling, call a crisis line. Call somebody, get some help. Do not be destroyed by your past. No. Because I want this victory for you too. I want you to wake up every day. Yeah. They couldn't do it. They couldn't take me out, and I'm going to have a good life for the rest of my days. That's right. You know what? Because that's a slap in their face. Absolutely. So thank you, Tessa, for being here with me. I appreciate it. And everybody else who stopped in. And I wish you a good day. Not all of us are going to have a good day. I know that. But I always wish people a good day. Take really good care of yourselves. We'll be back tomorrow. I've got a biblical Bible study thing I'm doing tonight. If anybody wants to catch that, it's about abuse related stuff too. So I'll be talking about that, but dealing with the biblical stuff. That's on tonight. And then tomorrow we'll be back here, finish up this step. This is pretty much the end of this book. So take really good care of yourself. I'm going to have a good day. Thank you, Tessa. I appreciate it. I've decided I'm going to have a good day today because I've wasted enough time. Last Thursday had a bit of a blowout, sort of a spiral down into a bit of a pity party sort of thing. Just feeling down because somebody treated me like a big pile of shit who I didn't even know, complete stranger. But I didn't assert myself, so then I felt stupid because I'm like, look, I'm learning how to assert myself. Why did I not do that, right? So I had a sort of a hard weekend. It's taken me a whole week to get back to work, feeling halfway decent. So I'm going to have a good day today. I truly am, and I really want you to do the same thing. Take care, everybody. Talk to you soon.